Come on and say, I was created to make your praise glorious.
It's glorious.
Hallelujah.
Yes,
Glory.
yes.
Yes, sir.
I thought you would enjoy that one.
I did. I was getting my praise on. Praise your name, Lord. That's my jam.
That's why I played it. Oh yeah. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Eden as an Act of Worship Ministries radio show with your host and Wooten Till. She couldn't wait for the introduction. She just had to jump in and share with everyone. She was praising this morning.
Yes, Lord. I needed that.
I
Thank
heard that. Well,
you.
you have a very special guest on today.
I do. I have your friend, the happy nurse, with me
Happy Nurse.
today. Yeah, I post one of Williams' guests for a change. Y'all know how he always stealing folks that I bring to the platform, and he take them and just work them to death. Well, I got one
Well,
of Williams'
all of
guests
that is
today.
true, and I'll do it again.
I know. Look. The guests learn the hard way. If they didn't know, they will find out. That if William
I'm going to
likes you, you will be on the Boomerang and probably 3, 4 other shows.
Hey, I'm telling you, look out. I'm going to step aside and enjoy the show.
All right, all right. Welcome to the show, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. If you are
Morning,
in the
morning.
central Arkansas or central United States or to the west of us, and if you are like our guest on the East Coast, good afternoon, because you've been up a while. But
Yeah.
we're glad to have everybody with us today, whether you are joining us live on the radio, streaming, or if you watch the replay. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Ann Wooten Taylor. I'm the CEO of Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries, and this is the Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries radio show. Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries is a nonprofit organization. We teach the biblical principles about the body, dieting, exercising, and maintaining a healthy body for the glory of God. We do that through our 12-week health and fitness course, which I'll tell you about when we get closer to time for class. But we also do it through this radio show. We got books and a whole lot of other things for you to help you along the way. Right now, it's time for us to help you out with our weekly motivation. You guys know it. Our motivation is designed to encourage you to stay the course if you've been doing well on your health and fitness journey. If you fell down, had a little hiccup, we want to encourage you to get up and try again. And if you haven't been able to find a reason to be motivated to take charge of your health and fitness, we want to motivate you today through Jesus Christ. So today's motivation is entitled, Are You Really Ready to Make a Change? All right. Those who are overweight often tell themselves that they change their unhealthy eating habits if they were diagnosed with an obesity related disease, such as, diabetes, hypertension, or something like that. However, the truth is the opposite frequently occurs. Instead of viewing the diagnosis as a wake up call, many people lose hope and stop trying to lose weight altogether. On the contrary, they acquiesce to the death sentence imposed upon them. My dad was like that. He was diagnosed with diabetes, but he refused to take his blood sugar to check his blood sugar levels or change his diet. He just pop a pill, if he felt like he wasn't feeling 100%. His habit of smoking cigarettes and the damage sustained to his heart when he served in Vietnam all worked against him too. At times, he'd stop smoking, begin to exercise, or start to make healthier eating choices. Nevertheless, like most people who are overweight, he slowly slipped backwards into his old habits. And in the end, the repeated failures had taken their toll and he stopped trying altogether. Consequently, we lost him much too soon. God doesn't want that for you and your loved ones. It's His will that families share an abundant life together. However, He is a God who keeps His word. If you fail to obey His commands to honor Him with your body by eating and drinking for His glory, then God will allow you to collect the wages of your sin, meaning an untimely death due to an obesity related disease. On the other hand, if you denounce the false gods you've made of your stomach and food, although Satan may ask for permission to kill you, God's answer is much more likely to be no. Don't wait to repent from your sin and seek the Lord's wisdom regarding your issue with weight and eating disorders. If you do, like David, you may have to suffer the consequences of your sin. Turn to the Lord today and pray for deliverance as the Israelites did when they denounced their idols right before the Philistines' surprise attack against Israel in 1 Samuel chapter 7. As God fought for the Israelites, he will fight the unseen obesity related and eating disorder enemies threatening to attack you. If you're willing to make a change, purchase your copies of the Eating as an Act of Worship workbook and the Eating as an Act of Worship Teacher's Edition online today at Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. In the books, you'll learn the biblical principles about the body, dieting, exercising, and maintaining a healthy body for the glory of God. Read our blog for motivation to stay healthy and fit through Christ, and follow us daily on Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, and Pinterest for recipes and diet and exercise tips. Don't forget to tune into our syndicated radio show on iTunes, Spotify, Studio W Buzz, and Victory KVDW 100.9 FM, 95.3 FM, and 1530 AM in Little Rock, Arkansas for fitness trends and interviews every single show. Lastly, don't forget to make your tax deductible donation to Eating as an Act of Worship Ministries at www.eatingasanactofworshipministries.org. You get to the home screen, upper right hand corner, you'll see a donate button. Click on it. And we thank you in advance for any generous gift you choose to bestow upon us. All right, everybody, that's your motivation for this week. We hope and pray it encouraged you to stay the course. If you've been doing well on your health and fitness journey, congratulations. If you fell down somewhere along the way, don't give up. Everybody slips from time to time. We want to encourage you to try again to stay the course. All right. And if you haven't been able to find a way to, take charge of your health and fitness, even though it was your New Year's resolution that you never even started, we want to motivate you today through Jesus Christ. All right, folks. All right. Now it is time for us to talk to our special guest. We have with us Miss Adrienne Kennedy. She's been in the nursing profession for 40 years, and she made history in the 1980s as the first Black high school student to take nursing classes and graduate in the top tier of her high school class of 1983. Ms. Kennedy obtained her master's degree in 2008, and she also earned an insurance license in 2016. She has two adult children and 2 grandchildren, and she currently resides in North Carolina. Good morning, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I have to say, I had to come back home. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and I had to come back here because we had a family emergency. So I am not in the comfort of my home. I do apologize
No
for where I'm
problem.
at. You might hear a little bit of noise. I was able to come to a lovely place called the Hilton.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yes. So I am in their lobby. So if you hear a little background noise, it's the people that's walking around. But hopefully, I'm in the business section, so hopefully it's not too bad. But thank you so much, Ann, for the introduction. Thank you, William. Haven't seen or heard from you in quite some time. I'm glad everything is well your way. I'm just glad to be here, and I'm glad to reunite with people that I have met. Has it been like a month now?
Yeah.
A little over
It's been a
month.
while. It's been a minute since I saw you on the Boomerang, but yeah, I poached her from the Boomerang from William this time because he always steals my guest, right? But
Well,
I appreciate you being with us.
I count it as an honor. I mean, this is sort of new to me, this platform. And certainly I do listen to the radio and I do listen to William's show now that I'm aware of it. And I think this is a good platform to get important things that are needed to be said in our community or to address, particular demographics.
I'm glad
well
you
needed.
mention that because
Mhm.
we are actually going to talk to you today about a subject I think is very, very important, especially for
Mhm.
our demographic. And
Yes.
it pertains to the nursing shortage. I mean, we've been hearing about the nursing shortage for a long time, especially it really took off during the pandemic. But, I thought that the nursing shortage, they were saying it a little bit before
Mhm.
the pandemic. I'd heard about people saying there weren't enough nurses and
I
whatnot.
heard the same thing. I heard the same
But
thing. Yes.
I think we all know now. We can
Mhm.
feel it now when you go to the hospital, when you
Yeah.
and places like that,
The longer
and
wait times.
not only the longer wait times, but when you have a person who is hospitalized, like I've had. I take care of my mother who has a lot of health issues, and she had to be hospitalized, during the pandemic because she went into renal failure.
Sorry to
um
hear
w-
that. Yeah.
yeah, and so then she got out of the hospital for that, and the following year she had to have brain surgery. And then she got sick with COVID after that the following year, and ended up in the hospital twice because of it. So each time I got to see fewer and fewer nurses. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So I got to see the impact of what
Mhm.
the pandemic, did to our healthcare system. And to think that there was a shortage before that, according, to
Yeah.
experts,
Yeah, it's true.
is kind of
Scary.
telling. So what I went, in preparation for today's show, to the American Nurses Association,
Mhm.
and they talk about nurses, in the workforce. And according to their website,
Mhm.
there are 4.3 million registered nurses
Mhm.
in the profession right now. So when you think 4.3 million, that sounds like a lot. But we are talking about a nation with 320 million people.
Yeah.
So and then you got to think of where these people are spread out and that type of
Well,
thing.
and you got to think about those who maintain their license but are not really practicing. Um,
Yes.
there's a lot of different variables with that number. And I had
Mhm,
heard the same thing. Nurses were leaving the field because of um,
mhm,
different elements. I've certainly seen it evolve and seen things change, and I certainly seen where nurses had to take on more of a role,
mhm,
and add more to what they were already doing, and it makes
mhm,
it hard. And so, um, definitely, I the shortage is real.
mhm,
COVID hit, and when COVID hit, there were some um, facilities that were mandating that nurses take this COVID injection or vaccine or whatever.
mhm,
And people don't want to be forced to do anything. It's
mhm,
it's enough that we already in some places
mhm,
are being mandated to got to take the flu shot. Because
mhm.
they want, it's flu season. They don't want people to spread the flu. There's pros and cons to that.
So
But
they
if
had different reasons for a lot of different reasons. It sounds like that people
yeah.
didn't want to stay in the profession, which tracks which with what I have been reading. They
Hmm.
mentioned that their retirements were retiring nurses are outpacing new entrants in the field.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
and
Yeah.
and they said that there's an increased demand, for healthcare from aging baby boomers and people with chronic diseases.
Right.
And they also said inadequate workforce support. What exactly does that mean?
Um, I can only mm, speak
Because I'm
about
wondering, I'm
my
like, so
background
is it?
because it's you're not having the support that you think you would have, whether it's from your colleagues, whether it's from your supervisor, and most of the time it's management. Management sees healthcare in a whole different light than the nurses do. The nurses are like the worker bees. We're getting in there, we're doing the work, we're doing what needs to be done. But if we don't have the tools, we don't have the supplies, we can't do but so much. When we knock on management's door and say, hey, by the way, we need this to help make this job a little bit better. Can we get this or can we get that? And management is saying it's out of the budget, or you don't have a person in management that has the heart or has the how do I want to put it? I can't think of the word right now, but they don't have the nurse's best interest at heart. So when you
Wow.
have people who are able to make decisions affecting nurses, either not nurses or they have no clue what nurses deal with, what they face with, they don't care. So it makes it
Wow.
harder. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
To say, hey, can we do this to improve this process? Nurses are very smart. Nurses are going to be innovative, but there comes a point where you just get tired and you feel like you hit a brick wall. You don't
Mm,
get that support that you need, and
mm.
and your colleague who works right alongside with you laterally can only give you so much. Sometimes you need it vertically, you know what I'm saying, coming down from the top. So that to me is what it means, inadequate um,
And
support.
that tracks a little bit with what I'm looking at here, because they talk
Mhm.
about nurse burnout being one of the reasons for the shortage.
Yeah.
And this is a different website, the National um, Institutes of Health, their
Oh, the
National Library.
NIH. Uh-huh.
Yes, in their National Library of Medicine, National Care of Biotechnology, National Center of Biotechnology Information website
Hmm.
is where I'm looking at. And they've got a lot of different factors that we'll talk about in turn. But one of them is nurse burnout. And
Yeah.
they mentioned that some nurses graduate and start working and then determine the profession isn't what they thought it would be,
Yes.
and
Yes.
others may work a while and experience burnout and leave the profession. Turnover
Hmm.
in nursing seems to be leveling off, but only after years of steadily climbing of steady climbing in rates. Currently, the national average for turnover rates is 8.8% to 37%, depending on geographic location and nursing specialty. So
Hmm.
is that part of the issue we were just talking about, about people not being supported, or is it just the work itself, and everything that
All the
came
above.
with it, the over,
All the
how,
above.
okay, because I
All
can
the above.
imagine that it was
Yeah.
scary, for people to
Mhm.
have these hospitals overflowing with patients that you can't really help, because there, wasn't a very effective treatment. And then you got all this other stuff, on top
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
So have you seen a lot of people come and go, or?
Well, I know the little bit that I know. Now, I'm not well connected,
Mhm.
with a lot of different nurses. I have a little small community.
Right,
um,
right. That's like
but
me. I know some lawyers, but I don't know everybody with a
yes,
JD degree, folks.
but you know what? Who I don't know somebody else that heard this is what's going on. Like I live in North Carolina, but I felt the pain that the nurses were dealing with in New York and New Jersey. I
Mhm.
wasn't there, but I could, sympathize with them because just the shortage that you already have, and working in a hospital, the city hospitals, they deal with something totally different than say a regular nice suburban hospital. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
The demographics is different, and what they're having to do, they deal with different. Like I don't deal with gunshot wounds or anything like that because where
right.
I'm at, but I do deal with crazy folks. I deal with
Right, right.
pediatric.
You're in the
I deal
healthcare
with
industry. I
um,
mean, the mental health care
yeah,
industry.
I deal with different things. I don't have that ER experience, but if I did had the ER experience, where I'm located at, the things that come through that ER is not the same as what would come through the ER in New York City. So I used to
Mhm.
like to watch those shows that show the inner cities. Like, oh my God, they got that. Oh, they got
Right.
that. Even though I know it's TV, but
It's
it's
so
like
different from what we
they're
deal with.
right, but
Exactly.
they're taking things that probably did walk through the door. So, I used to like watching shows like I'm dating myself, Saint Elsewhere, um,
Mhm. Yeah, that's where,
Grey's
Denzel
Anatomy.
Washington started out, right?
Yes, and Grey's Anatomy and stuff like
Yes.
that. And I had somebody ask me, they like, is that really real? And I'm like, well, sometimes it is. I said, because when you're working long hours, and that's another thing leading to nurse burnout, you have nurses that are working longer hours. So say for instance, you go to a regular job, we used to call it banker's hours, 9 to 5. So you go to
Mhm.
work at 9, you can about believe you can leave at 5 o'clock, or 5:15, maybe 5:30 if you really got something to do. You catch that last phone call and they keep you on the line for a few extra minutes. Nurses, it's not that simple.
No, it's
Because
not. Mm,
I can use me as an example. When I worked night shift, I went to work at the time I'm supposed to be there. I'm there. Day
mhm.
shift, well, the nurse might be running late. She might be caught in traffic. She's got to drop her kid off at the daycare. I mean, this is just things that I know that I've experienced. So I
Mhm.
can't, even though my shift might end at 7 o'clock in the morning, I can't walk off the floor because there's nobody
Right,
to relieve me. So
right.
now you're having to, and there's been plenty of times that nurse that was supposed to relieve me, like if I worked a Friday night,
Mhm.
Saturday mornings, I hate to work Friday nights because Saturdays you wasn't going home no time soon. Somebody's gonna be late. I mean, I'm just being honest. It's a Saturday morning. People don't want to show up and be to work at 7 o'clock or 6:45, whatever in the morning. They just don't want
Right,
to do it. So there's
right.
been plenty of times I've worked over. Now I done did my shift. Now I got to do half a day shift.
Wow,
That becomes
wow.
burnout. Half a
Mhm.
day shift. So and if they have nobody and they mandate you, you cannot leave. There's such a thing called patient abandonment. You can't just
Yes,
leave that floor
yes.
if there's nobody to relieve you. You're just stuck.
Right.
So and that's the little bit that I've experienced. Just multiply that. And if it was on a regular basis, which it was, I knew when I work a Friday night, I knew I
Mhm.
was not getting out of there. No time. It was just like I might as well expect to stay till like 12 o'clock or half the shift for Saturday
Eh,
because that's what it was. Especially if you worked on that floor that nobody wanted to work on,
oh
that
my
difficult floor.
gosh.
Oh yeah, that difficult floor. Nobody
Mhm.
wants to come in, and it's just the burnout is real. The burnout is real,
Well, you
and there's
mentioned the people having to drop their kids off at daycare and whatnot, and the
mhm,
NIH, they stated that that contributes to the shortage as
mhm.
well because
Yeah.
nursing is still majority female, and often during childbearing years, the nurses, cut
Somebody's
back.
got to watch the kids.
Right, they cut back or they leave the profession altogether,
Mhm.
but they mentioned that some people eventually return but others move on to different professions. So
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like, when I listen to nurses, I'm like, if you're working in a clinic or something
Mhm.
like that, you can have a pretty normal work day schedule.
To
But
a degree,
otherwise,
you can, yeah,
yeah.
you
But
can get off
otherwise,
that
it seems
time.
like they work 12 hours, 24 hours. It's like, they have like
Well,
2 days on one day.
you
Yeah,
can't
it's
work.
weird.
Technically, you can't work a person past 16 hours. Technically,
Okay. Okay.
because that means you're already working that person. You know, 2 8-hour shifts if it's an
Hmm.
8-hour shift.
Hmm.
If a person works 12-hour shifts, you can't work them no more than another 4 hours. So that's
Wow.
still 16. 16 supposedly is
Mhm.
the maximum amount that you can work a person because there's supposed to be an 8-hour break in between that nurse returning back to work. It's supposed to be 8 hours, supposedly.
Mhm.
Now, is it really true 8 hours? You think about it. By the time you give a report, the person relieves you, you get in your car, you do what you need to do, you wind down, you get into bed, set your alarm so you can come back in enough time. It's not really an 8 hour break in between. So,
Mm.
do that 2 or 3 times during the week. Yes, you're tired. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
There's been times, even on my job where I'm at now, and even though I'm not in a hospital setting, the setting that I'm in, there's been times when I've worked over my shift and I
Mm,
come back the next day at my scheduled time. I'm tired. And I'm
mm,
like, can I go home early? And I don't really ask to go home early. It's not a strenuous job. But then it's like, but I've worked that shift prior. I've stayed over. You know what I'm
mhm,
saying? So that the place can still run, so that the place can still be maintained. So when I come back the next day, I'm not 100%,
mhm.
but I'm able to operate enough. But then I'm like, you know what? Towards the end of the day, I'm dragging. I'm like, I just need to go home. This is not going to work for me. You begin to shut down, and you're not at
Right.
your peak. You're not at your peak. I don't care how much coffee you drink. There's only so
Mhm,
much coffee is going to pick you up. There's only so much that the 5 hour drinks are going to do to pick
mm.
you up. You have to be mentally alert to do your
Right.
as a nurse, no matter
Exact
what, no matter what arena you're working in. And my hat goes off to those nurses who have to be 100% mentally alert. That's
mm,
hard to be mentally alert. You
mm.
cannot go into work, you know, dragging. You can't.
Exactly.
When you
Exactly.
get this, you're mandated to stay, or you have to stay. I used to dread working in facilities where it's called a red dot after your name. That
Hmm.
meant if the person who was to relieve you did not come in, you had that red dot, you were mandated to stay. You had to stay
Wow.
the whole shift. Yeah, so
Wow.
people, that's what I'm saying. People don't understand some of the things that nurses deal with. You know,
Mhm.
the simple things. Like I tell people, I want to go to the bathroom when I want to go, when I
Mhm.
can, not an hour or so later because I'm in the middle of something and I can't go. I want to be able to take
Wow.
lunch and eat. I want to
Mm.
sit down and eat my food, and not get a lunch break where I'm on the go, or just sit down long enough to scarf down my food and then go back to work. I mean, you get indigestion that way.
Right,
You don't
right.
enjoy your food. I mean, but these are
Right.
some of the things that um, nurses endure. And I also, I cheated. I didn't do the research like you did, but I went to the internet and I
Mhm.
and I just said, give me 10 talking points that nurses deal with. The fact that it is a shortage, you are
Mhm.
burnt out, you are often asked to work longer hours than what you are
Mhm.
required to.
Right.
I've never known a place where I've worked and they said, we have too many nurses. We're just going to send you home today. We have enough
That would
staff
be really
here.
nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we have enough staff, so we don't really need you. But they will send other people home,
Mhm.
other staff that,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say they're not essential, but you know what I'm saying.
Right,
And
right, right.
or another thing that I found is that um, because you have a nursing degree, you have a college education, we need you to learn how to do this person's role as well as your role. So now
Oh.
yes. So now you're taking on not just your responsibility, what maybe you got hired for, but now you're having to learn a role that doesn't take much, I guess, education or whatever. And so
Wow.
that's where I'm at in my situation right now and the job before this, because not only could I work as a nurse, but when we were short techs, sometimes the nurses worked as a tech. And what a tech did was they did those 15-minute rounds. They made sure everything was straight with the patients. They assisted them with their ADLs and things of that nature. So if we had a shortage of techs, guess what? That meant if there's an extra nurse or we would pull a nurse from a floor, now
Mhm.
she's working beneath her because she can do that. But a tech
Mhm.
can't work as a nurse. They can't help us with our responsibilities. They can't
Right.
they can't do our med pass for us.
Right,
That's
right,
what I'm
right.
talking about, where you have management. You don't have that support. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
we don't care. All we know is we have an extra body in a building. We have a nurse. We're going to work this nurse as something else. It's not in her scope of nursing, but it's beneath her. So we know she can handle it. So, you have that going on too.
So when you say ADL, you mean assisted daily living?
Assistant activities of daily living, right? Like the
Mhm.
facility I worked at, inpatient site.
Mhm.
They might have had somebody called out who was a tech, but you might have had an extra nurse. Well, not an extra nurse because you never had extra nurses, but
Right.
you might could spare that nurse to do
Mm.
something else. And so
Mhm.
now you've got that nurse who's doing the function of a tech. Some nurses didn't want to do it, some nurses didn't mind. Like for
Mhm.
me, I'm like, and I work night shift, I didn't mind, I did it. But there were
Mhm.
nurses like, that is so beneath me, I'm not doing that. So, you
It
know
it sounds like
and
easy
it's
work if it's something
it's
that's,
easy, it's
it
easy,
sounds
but
like
it's
it's a little
tedious.
easier to do, but
It is, but it's tedious because you're on your feet every 15 minutes. You have to do these
okay.
checks every 15 minutes.
Right.
So yeah, it's never been a case where it's been like, oh, we've got too many nurses today, we're just going to send you home. No, no.
Well, you and now we're talking, about healthcare in general, but you work specifically with mental health patients. So how is this? Because it's one thing, with me watching my mom,
Mm-hmm.
who has cognitive issues and
Mm,
issues with
yeah.
her kidneys and and needing three nurses to hold to hold her down to get blood or whatnot plus me, so I can only
Right.
imagine what it's like when you are dealing with a whole facility or a whole
A whole
floor,
unit, a whole
right,
unit.
dealing
Yes.
with mental who have mental health. How is this,
Whew.
how is it affecting that segment of the healthcare population?
Same as everybody else. same as everybody else. I mean, like I said, it's never been, we have too many nurses where they say, okay, we got too many, you can go home. It's never been that. A lot of times they're on the phone, the supervisors are on the phone, and they're trying to find coverage for somebody to, so they can meet the quota, the staffing quota. Um, and that's where you get the burnout. That's where you get like, man, by the time I go home, I got to turn right back around and come back and do it again. Some units are worse than others, and you want to
Right.
make sure that there's enough staffing that's there. It can be like I have some talking points here. Of course, number one, decrease patient quality care. You're not going to be able to do that because you can't physically do what you need to do when you're short staffed and you don't have the tools, the support that you need. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
can't get a lunch break. You got to work 16 hours. And I'm going back when I remember I used to work over 16 hours, or not over, but at least a 16-hour.
Mhm.
You're supposed to get your little lunch break. Like if you work 8 hours, you get a 30-minute lunch break. Well, if you work 16 hours, you would get another 30 minutes. But wherein do you get that extra 30 minutes if you have nobody to relieve you and you're already working because there's a shortage? Do you think management cares about that? Do you think management cares and say, hey, we got to make sure we get you your lunch break? We realize that you've worked over from the last shift and we just want to make sure. No, the nurse has to be assertive to make sure that she gets that second lunch break if she gets it. So, um, there's been times where they don't care that you're working over. It's just a body in the building. You are filling that spot. You are filling that quota. We don't care if you don't feel well. We don't care if you did not get that break that, you know what I'm saying? And there's been times where if you don't, you will. I tell people I've got to take a break. If I don't, I'm gonna pass out on this floor. And I know
Right. You have another patient to deal with. Which
exactly. And I'm like,
which
and I know
brings
you guys are not gonna help me. Nobody's gonna do CPR on me or say, hey, what do we do? Because I'm the nurse. I'm the one with the medical expertise. I'm the one they call when somebody, passes out on the floor or something like that. So
right. So who is going to be the one to help the
nobody,
healer? Um,
nobody.
and my thing is this, it's one thing for you to have a patient who is capable, of
Mhm.
doing certain things like maybe
Mhm.
taking themselves to the restroom or taking a shower themselves or, that type of thing. But
Mhm.
when you're dealing with, say, a person that's in intensive care or like people that you are dealing with,
Right.
people with mental health issues who, you know, a lot of times, somebody, one of the reasons people have mental health issues because they stop taking care of themselves properly.
Or
They
they stop
stop.
taking your medications, and so now
Right.
you're slipped
So
back
they
into
need
favorite
a
mess.
lot more assistance.
Right.
So I can only imagine if you don't have enough nurses to support the
Mhm.
staff you've already got, what it's like for these
Right.
patients. I mean, because it sounds like it could be dangerous for both the patient and the nurse,
It is.
in
So
a lot of ways.
so wait a minute. Have you heard about the violence in the workplace with nurses? Nurses getting beat up by the patients. Nurses are dying from these injuries. I mean, it's
Mhm.
a lot that's going on,
That was
and
another
another
one of the
reason.
reasons
Yeah.
for
Nurses are
the
leaving.
right, for the shortages.
Yes.
So we were going to talk
Yes.
about that with next because
Mhm.
I was I know that when you deal with people with mental health issues,
Right.
sometimes they can be violent. Not all of them, but there are some who, can
Get
act out,
agitated. They
some
get
who
agitated.
right,
Yeah.
or they can, try to take their own lives or, um I'm an attorney, so sometimes I have to deal with these particular issues. And I had a
Hmm.
case recently where a patient hit someone in the healthcare industry, and
Right.
e- healthcare workers are taught how to restrain, how to de-escalate.
Some,
But
but not everybody. Some people
right,
are. It depends
right,
on
but
uh,
they're not
the
supposed to
area.
fight back. And this particular person fought
Well,
back. Um, and of
well,
course, and
yeah,
lost their job. And so I'm
yeah,
like, but that's harder to do. Remembering your training is harder to do when you're tired. Remembering your training is harder to do when you're being hit in the face. You know what I'm saying? By
right,
somebody else.
right.
And there's nobody to come and assist you. So
That's
it's
where that lack of what you had mentioned before, you
Mhm.
know, the lack of structure, inadequate structure, because I had that training. It's called CPI. I've had that training, but
Mhm.
in a real in the real world, that's like you
Mhm.
being out on the street. You're not going to walk around always ready to fight. Sometimes you
Mhm.
get caught off guard, and then you got to catch yourself. Like, okay, then you start defending yourself. Um, but in a situation with the nurse, the environment, what was going on, the different variables, and some
Mhm.
people take offense. You hit me, I'm gonna hit you back.
Right.
You're
Right.
the nurse. I don't
Mhm.
care that, I might not supposed to, because in this day and age, there's too many nurses right now that are they're getting injuries. No increase in workplace violence on the nurses. That's a
Mhm.
lot, and that's what they make us take now. We have to learn how to deal with that. But we do
Mhm.
have workplace violence. Before it wasn't so much on the nurses or the healthcare profession, but now
Mhm.
it is.
Mhm.
I mean, and there's all types of variables. I mean, you can go one way or the other with that.
Mhm.
That's a whole different ball of wax, because you can have somebody who comes to work and they're dealing with internal issues from home, or you can have somebody who comes to work and they're dealing with work issues because just the different things that are going on, not that lack of support, not having
Mhm.
not being listened to. I can't tell you that I have written at least 3 letters
Mhm.
where I was at a particular place to the higher
Mhm.
up. I don't even know if they read it, but I
Mhm.
put it in writing and I kept a copy, because if something went wrong or if something happened, I have it in writing. I was short staffed. I only had myself and one other person. I'm on a unit with XYZ number of patients, and I've got an admission that have come in, and blah, 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 blah. And
Mhm.
they expect you to be super nurses and to handle all that. And like I tell people, there is no S on my chest, and I don't have no cape flowing in the wind.
I can't fly. I can't even levitate.
When the time calls and I'm older now, yes, I want to go to the bathroom. We have
Right.
the worst, nurses have the worst bladders, because we can't go when we want to. We have to wait until it's
Wow.
opportune time to go. Oh yeah, if you're in
Wow.
the middle of doing something, you just can't. Oh, I got to use the bathroom. Just tip on out, hold out. Do the one finger like here in the church.
Right.
You
Right.
can't do that. You have to
Right.
wait until the opportune time when you get a break. I mean, and then there's sometimes the bathroom facilities is not readily where you think it would be. Now you got to walk down the hall. You got to run to that bathroom, And when you get a
Mhm.
little bit older, your bladder just don't hold it like it used to.
Right. Your body's like, either
You
you gonna go
stand
to the
up,
bathroom or
or you can have a
we gonna
puddle.
go right here, right now.
Exactly. So you know what I'm talking about. So yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes on in the changing field, and unfortunately, those who have been in it a while, we understand. So we're going to deal with it because we're a little bit more mature. But then you have the younger ones that are coming in to
Mhm.
nursing, and they're like, I got to put up with this. I got to put up with that.
Because it looks so different on
You
TV.
see them. It's not glamorous. It's not glamorous anymore, and you
Right.
can see it. And they have legitimate reasons, and they have legitimate, like,
Mhm.
I don't know why we can't do it this way. Whereas us older nurses that are been there a while, we're exiting it out. We thought the same way, but because it was our job and we wanted our job, we dealt with it. There's a lot of things we dealt with. We shut up and put up because we wanted our job, and we just said this is just part of nursing. But some of
Mhm.
these younger nurses, they're like, I got to do that. You say what? People that talk to me this way. I can't tell how many times I got cussed out by a patient.
Yes.
I get cussed out.
Yes.
I just try not to be in that
Yes.
arena, but I've
Mhm.
gotten cussed out. And I remember the one time a patient, well, they weren't considered a patient in that facility. They were considered residents. So they were in
Mhm.
a county jail, and I'm passing out pills, and I'm doing my job. And I have the correctional officer that's with me. And this particular inmate resident just thought they knew me. I
Mhm.
guess I look like somebody they knew. So they are talking to me some sort of way, and I'm 26 years old. And I'm looking at this person like, you have the wrong person. I don't know who you are. I just
Right.
moved to this area. So, evidently I don't know you. You don't know me. And
Mhm.
then they went to say some other exploratives. And I said something back. Now, the whole time this conversation is carrying on, I got a correctional officer by my side, close
Mhm.
enough, reach out and touch, because they have to be close to you,
Right.
something happens, they're able to react.
Right.
This person is carrying on this conversation. It went sideways and left real quick. The officer never
Wow.
said anything. The officers on my right hand side never said anything. I'm giving medicine in my left hand, giving them their meds and all this stuff. I don't know what happened. I guess person, thought I was saying something that who I wasn't, and he for sure I was this particular person. And I'm
Mhm.
trying to say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not me. I'm new to there. I don't even know what area you're talking about. And
Mhm.
he wanted to cuss me out. And
Oh
I said,
my
I'm sorry.
gosh.
I just said, I don't remember what I said, but it was just like a one word, something I don't remember. This was a long time ago. The
Right.
correctional officer, now mind you, that person standing there during this whole conversation never said a word until I said something, until
Mm.
I defended myself and I said a cuss word back. I don't like I don't remember, it was a one word thing, And I
Mhm.
said to myself, I said, oh no, I'm not about to work in this type of atmosphere where these people who are behind bars can cuss me out. And the minute I stick up for myself, I
It's a
can't do that.
problem. Mhm.
I can't say anything back on that nature. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, you can't say anything. I said, but the correctional officer standing right there by my side never said anything. And I know they heard the whole conversation.
Right, right,
And,
right.
and this is when I was 26. And I was like, oh, no, I can't work here. And it's so funny because I ran into one of the nurses that I met. And I'm thinking she retired from that because it was, I guess, a pretty cushy job after you get through certain things. Well,
Mhm.
for me, I ran into her recently and we were joking and laughing. She said, yeah, girl, you was there for a hot minute. She said, you
She said a hot minute.
I said, no. I said, the person was cussing me out. And I mean, and I remember it to this day. I said, and the minute
Right.
I said something to defend myself, that's when the officer all of a sudden decided to, oh, you can't do that. I mean,
Mm.
I'm the one who got corrected. Now I'm
Mhm.
sitting here. Now that didn't settle well with me because I'm like, no, wait a minute. You stood here this whole time where this person had this conversation with me, cussed
And
me
then
out,
say a
tried to
word.
accuse me of who they thought I was, and I just defended myself and said, I'm sorry, that's not me. I
Right.
don't care what you say, that's not me. And the minute I said something, and it wasn't anything major, it was like one of those words that people say, some 4-letter word, I don't remember. But like I said, it was nowhere in comparison to what this person had just said to me. Okay.
Mhm. Right,
And,
right.
and when those words left my mouth, that's when the correctional officer went into action. The whole time now, correctional officer didn't do anything until I
Mhm.
responded and wanted to defend myself. So I said all that to say you don't know what the nursing person is dealing with, that nursing staff, whether it's a male or female. You don't know what they're dealing with. Nobody comes to work to get verbally abused, to get physically abused. Nobody comes to work for that. But yet every day nurses come to work and they are underneath some type of mental stress, mental duress. So yes,
Mhm.
so when they're leaving the field and they're pivoting and they're going in different directions,
Mhm.
you can't blame them until
Well,
there's a shakeup in the way things are being done, and it may not ever happen. Nurses have to be proactive.
well, give us a visual, because we've heard about all the burnout and all the bad stuff. Give us a
Ooh,
visual of what it's like when you have the staff and you have the resources
mhm.
in order to run, the facility or the hall or whatever
Right,
floor you're on with efficiently so that everybody
right.
so that the
So
patients
there's
get what
not
they
that much
need and the
stress.
workforce have what they need, especially the nurses.
Well, and let me tell you this, and this might not be the case for everybody, but this is just what I've heard,
Mhm,
and it probably is true.
mhm,
If you keep your staff a little bit on the short side, you will always keep them busy. Because the
mm,
minute you put enough staff on the unit where everything should work accordingly, where everything is staffed the way it should, when you have the right ratio of nurses to your patients or residents, whatever you call the people that you're taking care of, consumers,
mm.
whatever the case is, then the workload works smooth as it should. You have a good shift, but they're going to find somebody with too much downtime.
Mm.
You can't have downtime. You want to be productive. So you always work your staff short. Now,
Oh, so they're doing it
I've
intentionally in some
heard that.
cases.
I've heard that,
Mhm.
and I about believe it's true. And this is once again from the people who are not nurses. They don't
Mhm,
really know what it
mhm,
is that nurses have to contend with. They
Right,
only
right,
know
right.
they only know the metrics of the floor. We have an empty bed. We have three empty beds. We need to fill these three empty beds so that this floor is at capacity. I've worked at a place where they would cap it at a certain amount of people on the unit because it was supposed to be a smaller unit. So they
Mhm.
might cap it at 16, whereas your other units could have up to 22, 28, 30 patients. That's a lot of
Mm.
people. 30 patients, that's
Wow.
a lot. So
Wow.
I have heard that, you never want to have it fully staffed because then the people don't work. But if you have it short staffed, you're going to, you know, that's just the way you do it. Now, like
Mm.
I said, I've heard that. I don't know how true it is. I'm hoping that that's not true, but I sort of inclined to think when you have a for profit facility and they're all about the dollar, the bottom line being how much money they're making, how many people can you get in, they're not worried about let's make this environment feasible
Mhm.
so that our people can stay. They take all the surveys they want, even where I'm at right now. I just took another survey. They take these surveys, but how much they really listen to, I don't know. I mean, where are the changes at? I don't know. I think they take them just to say, hey, we got a survey, but
Mhm.
do you actually implement it? Because you can, you know, say a lot, but do you actually implement what you're saying? Or are you really listening to your staff when they, do these surveys? Are
Mhm.
you listening to what's going on? Are you trying to prevent something? Or are you just saying, oh, well, we listen, we have all these surveys, but are
Mhm.
you doing anything about it? You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Well,
I really,
we're talking about nursing in general, with an emphasis, especially on the mental health care. What would you
right.
like to see? If in a perfect world for you, what would you like to
Mm.
see so that patients and nurses alike have the best possible working environment?
I'm going to say staffing and training and communication.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to see improve upon. You
Mhm.
need enough staff to take care of the patients that are on the floor. You
Mhm.
need and that's just not the nursing staff, that's the staff that would be involved and touch every angle of that person, every
Mhm.
angle of the patient that needs
Mhm.
care. That's why they're there. So we're
Mhm.
talking about not just your physicians, you're
Mhm.
talking about the nursing and the non-nursing staff.
Mhm.
Sometimes the clinicians are burnt out. They have a lot that they have to do. The clinicians, they're dealing with trying to place people um, into group homes or place them somewhere so that they can continue to receive the help that they need.
Mhm.
Sometimes the clinicians are overwhelmed.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
hear this, we see this. So it needs to be enough staffing to make sure that you are able to execute good quality care. There needs to be that communication of what's
Mhm.
being done. A lot of times the communication doesn't get carried down officially, but unofficially. Somebody
Mhm.
hears something, somebody overheard somebody say something like, this is the change that's going to take place. And so we hear things that way. And sometimes it's correct, sometimes it's not. So I think communication needs to be key, but definitely having enough staff that's who wants to work, one, and who is adequately trained, number two.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's another thing. You got to make sure your staff is trained and equipped to deal
Mhm.
with the patients that you are servicing. It doesn't
When
make
you
sense to bring a
you
body in
said
here.
who wants to work, that those
Yes,
words, just stood
yes.
out like a sore thumb.
Hmm.
We've talked so much about the nursing shortage and all the bad things that make it. What would make somebody, after all the things we just said, want to be a nurse? Because you are a nurse and have been one for 40 years. What is it that you love about nursing and
Well, and
that you wish other people want to enter the profession?
I'm gonna tell you this. There was a time I was going to leave. I got so discouraged, and there
Mhm.
was a times that I pivoted. That was why I went in towards got my license, um, life and health, life insurance agent, because I
Right.
was trying to pivot and do other things outside of nursing. But nursing always was going to be
Called
there.
you back.
I think I
Yeah.
started so young. That's
Mhm.
what I know, like the back of my hand. I can
Mhm.
walk into a job, a nursing job, and there's that wealth of knowledge that I've already obtained down through the years. That
Mhm.
is what I call upon. I know how to take your temperature. I know how to get a good set of vitals. I know what's normal, what's not. I know how to draw your blood. I know how to do an IV. There's certain things that I know how to do that's considered, we call that the basics of nursing. I know how to do some of that stuff.
Right, right.
Stuff, if I put into a different environment and it's like a specialty or something I'm not familiar with, yes, then I got to go through training and learn that. But they expect you to have the basics of nursing. That's why a lot of times they'll say, let's do they'll put out a job posting and they'll have all these requirements, because this is what they're building on. They can train you, but they want you to have the basics. Nursing can be rewarding. The goal is to see the people that you take care of get better. It is a community where nurses are special. And I feel like you never are off duty, because the moment you tell somebody you are a nurse, guess what?
They have all kind of questions. Same thing with the lawyer. It's like, okay, I'm going to send you a bill.
Something they want. Exactly.
Right.
My family member had this. Can you tell me what that may have been? Or
right.
I have family members that call me, like my father called me.
Yes.
It's so funny.
Legal advice.
He says, I am not going to take this medicine that the doctor prescribed for me, because he gave me his reason. And so I'm talking to him. I said, well, do you have high blood pressure, Dad? He said, yeah, well, my pressure was up, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. He said, but I got to bring it down. He said, because if I can't bring it down, I can't continue to do my job, what I'm doing. Now, mind you, he's retired, but he done went back into the workforce again.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, Dad. I said, so
you need to take your medicine.
you take your medicine, or what you need to do is be very adamant about taking some natural remedies to lower your blood pressure. Right. First of all, you need to watch what you eat.
Exercise.
And he's at a particular age where, he came back and told me, I'll eat what I want to eat.
Exactly.
Exactly. You're going to get the results that you're going to get. And I had to tell him, I said, there's certain things that I had to change. As I got older, my body just couldn't handle it. So I had to use myself as an example to say, if I could do it, this is a normal process. As we get older and things change, we have to change what we eat, exercise a little bit different or exercise a little bit more. And so he was like, oh, okay. And he says, I'll think about it. I say, yeah, if you want to keep the job that you're doing, that you enjoy doing, and they're saying your blood pressure has to come down in order for you to maintain that job, then of course you got to do one thing or the other.
Exactly.
Now, you can do, like you said, there's going to be consequences in either direction you go, whether you take the medicine and you get your meds lower, or you continue, and say, I don't want to take the meds, and you deal with high blood pressure and possibly not being able to continue your job. It's up to you.
So what do you say to people who, are listening to the broadcast, who are thinking about becoming nurses? How do you encourage? And how do you encourage them?
At one point, I didn't really encourage people, because nursing was hard. Nursing is hard, and it's still hard. But I don't want to discourage somebody if that's what they want to do, if that's their love. I'm not going to discourage anybody and say you can't do it. I'm just going to say to them, make sure this is something you want to do, because it's too much effort and too much that you have to put into it. You can't get halfway in it and then decide, I don't want to do it. You're halfway in it. You're halfway in the course, and you've got, so much invested into the program, because it's a lot that you have to invest to become a nurse. It's not like you can say, well, I'm just going to try it, and then if I'm going to put my big toe in it, and then if I don't like the way the water feels, I don't like the temperature, I'm taking my big toe out. Nursing is not that way. It's not that way. It's like same with the doctor. You put too much investment into being a doctor for you to say halfway through, I think I'm gonna drop out. Although people do drop out, but I think they drop out at the beginning. You're not going to drop out when you're doing your internship or your residency. You've got too much invested in that. You're not trying, you got to go all the way. Then you got to find something that you can enjoy doing, and that's where I think some of the nurses who have stayed, they found a niche in which they enjoyed doing, or they didn't have a problem doing it, or they were so used to doing it regular, like I know what to do. I know I can go into this job and I know what I'm going to deal with. I know what I'm going to face. And they've already resolved, in themselves, within themselves, this is the course where I'm on until I feel like I want to change. And some people, they stay there till they retire. So
Wow.
it's a difference. I think us older nurses, we have that ability to be resilient and
Mm,
also to have that stick to it attitude, that mentality. I'm gonna stick with this. For one, you got responsibilities, you got bills. You just can't up and leave a job. Like back in the day when I first moved down here in North Carolina and
mm.
Buffalo, New York, I could leave a job in 1 week and have another job the next week.
Right, 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 right. It's
Some
different
things I
now.
could do, but yeah, I mean things have changed. So I'm older. I've got more maturity underneath my belt, and I've got more that I have to deal with. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
So I can't just up and leave a job. And I got car payment, I got house payment, I got
mhm.
credit cards. I got things I want to do.
Right.
I want to pamper myself. So it's a lot more at stake. Um, Now, at my age than when I was in my 20s and,
Mhm,
going from
mm.
one job to another. And it was a whole lot easier too to get another job, because people, they trained you and what they wanted to do. Now they want you to come in with you know, a,
Prepared, fully prepared. Yeah.
or to have that, like I'm talking about, that base knowledge. They want
Mhm,
you to already have that base knowledge. All they want to do is just say, hey, we're going to give you some training for about 2 to 3 weeks. We want you to grasp this new, what you're supposed to be doing, but we know that you can do it because you're a nurse and you have a college degree. That's the lot.
right.
You can do this because you have a college degree. This person might just have a high school education, but we know you have a college degree, so we really want you to, just jump right on in there and get the
Mhm.
job done. We're going to give you like 2 3 weeks, and if you need another week or so, we'll give that to you. But our training is 2 to 3 weeks that we expect you to get it.
Well, I hate that we are running out of time, but we are. When you, we have
Oh, okay,
we
that
have
was
talked.
quick.
Yeah, we've talked a
Quick.
while, girl. We've talked a. Oh yeah, we've talked a while.
I
It's
hope
after
that I
it's
have
after
added
12.
something to your show. I really do.
Oh well, thank
I've
you,
added
thank you.
value, and I thank you again, for having me on your
Mhm.
show.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Thank you for being here. I hope people do understand that when you visit a hospital or clinic or whatever, I always
be
try
nice
my
to your
best to
nurses.
encourage the nurses that are
Yeah,
there because I'm grateful for them. The nurses that I've met, they have been most of them have been so kind and so patient, especially when they're taking care of my mother.
right.
And so I really do want the nursing profession to be very well supported, very well staffed, um, paid what they are worth, because we need them. We really do. But I personally am a person who thinks that it's a whole lot better when you have a job that doesn't feel like work. So if you are passionate about taking
Yeah,
care
you
of
got
other
to have it.
people,
Mhm.
it sounds like that would like this is something that would fit for you. Now if you
Right.
just want to check it sounds like you might not want to do
Well, we do
it.
have now we do have nurses that you can tell they come in, they just want that check, and I don't know what
Right,
that
right,
means. And
right. But if
I
you
don't know if they experience burnout early and they're there because, like you said, the responsibilities and what have you.
Mhm,
I've worked with nurses like that, and those are some of the worst because they're lazy. I call it
mhm.
like it is. They are lazy.
Right.
They will get out of trying to do the least amount as possible. So yeah,
Mhm.
to me they're lazy nurses. But like I said, some people look at, I have a body filling this position. We don't care if they're that well
Mhm.
qualified or that well versed or not. They're filling the staff quota. So that's,
Exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Well,
that's it.
thank you so much again for, sharing
You, thank
your
you. I enjoyed it.
experiences. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, 40 years in the profession. God bless you. Thank you so much
It
for,
started right here
taking
in
care.
this city where I'm at now in Buffalo, New York. It started. My nursing
Mhm.
career started here. I have to give a shout out
Wow.
to the first hospital that I cut my teeth on, so to speak. It's called Erie County Medical Center. It's still in
Wow.
the same place on Grider Street here in Buffalo, and it's a
Wow.
13th floor facility hospital, and it's a teaching hospital.
Mm.
And like I said, it was called, and I don't know what they call it now, but back then when I worked here at that
Mhm.
hospital, it was called Western New York's Trauma Center, #1 trauma center.
Mhm.
And, and truly it was,
Wow.
the trauma center to go to. If you were banged up in a car accident or anything
Mhm.
like that, ECMC was the place to go because, they're going to do what they have to do.
Wow.
They had everything right there. 13 floors. That's a big hospital. That's a big
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much
hospital.
again for
You're welcome.
giving us your
Thank
time and
you.
your expertise, especially in the middle of your family issues.
Thank
So God's blessings
you.
on
Keep
you and
us
your
in
family,
prayer on that. Yes,
and
keep us in
safe
prayer.
travels. Safe
Thank you as
travels.
well.
All
Thank you.
right. You're
All right.
welcome. All right,
Bye.
folks, that's my